What if 16 hours of fasting only lead your body to the doorway of a new metabolic state, while 23 hours of fasting already push it through? Most people believe fasting simply means eating less, fewer calories, less weight. But biologically speaking, this is a misconception. The body does not respond to what you eat. It responds to what is missing. Because between 16 hours and 23 hours without food lies no small difference. It is the moment when your metabolism decides whether it merely switches briefly or fully changes mode, whether fat is only tapped into or becomes the primary energy source. And this is exactly where the real question begins. Not which fasting method is more popular, but in what state is your body actually working after 16 hours and after 23? The human body was not built to eat constantly. For hundreds of thousands of years, food was irregular, unpredictable, and often scarce. Eating meant survival, but fasting did as well. Metabolism evolved precisely for this alternation. But the modern world has destroyed this rhythm. 3 meals a day, snacks in between, eating out of habit instead of need. And slowly, the body begins to forget what it once did perfectly, switching between energy sources. Fasting is therefore not a trend. It is an attempt to reactivate an ancient biological mechanism. But not all fasting works the same way. The decisive question is not whether someone fasts, but how long the body is forced to function without external energy. Because up to a certain point, the body is still living off the past, off stored glucose, off full glycogen stores in the liver. Only when these reserves decline does the real metabolic switching process begin. And it is exactly at this threshold that the paths of 16.8 and OMAD diverge. In the first hours after the last meal, fasting appears unremarkable. The body seems calm, stable, almost unchanged. Glucose from foods circulates in the blood, insulin is elevated, and the cells readily use the available energy. At this moment, someone who is fasting is hardly different from someone who has just eaten. After about 4 to 6 hours, the situation slowly begins to change. Blood sugar drops, insulin falls, and the liver opens its internal storage. Glycogen, stored glucose, is released to continue supplying the brain and muscles. The body is now living off what it previously stored. Between 8 and 12 hours after the last meal, this process is fully established. The liver works continuously to keep blood sugar stable. Hunger appears, not because energy is lacking, but because hormonal signals are being recalibrated. Ghrelin rises, while the body begins to prioritize energy efficiency over comfort. Up to this point, there is no real difference between 16 hours of fasting and 23 hours of fasting. Metabolism is still operating within a familiar framework. The crucial question is not what has already happened, but what happens next when reserves begin to run out. After approximately 16 hours without food, the body reaches a critical threshold. Liver glycogen stores are largely depleted. Insulin remains low, while glucagon takes the lead. For the first time, metabolism consciously begins to search for another energy source. Fat tissue is now activated. Fatty acids are released and partially converted into ketone bodies in the liver. But these ketones are not yet the dominant energy source. They appear more like a signal, an indication that the body is beginning to switch. This state is the core of 16-8 fasting. The body relearns how to switch between energy forms. Insulin sensitivity improves, inflammatory processes may decrease, and many people report lighter mental clarity. But biologically speaking, the body remains in a transitional mode. Autophagy, the cellular cleanup process, is also initiated during this phase. Damaged proteins are recognized, and initial repair mechanisms are activated. But this process resembles an engine idling, rather than a machine operating at full load. 16 hours of fasting mean change, but not depth. Between 20 and 23 hours without food, the body's internal dynamics change noticeably. The liver is now empty. There are no short-term reserves left to draw upon. Insulin remains extremely low, while glucagon and other stress and survival hormones take control. Fat is no longer just an option. It is the primary energy source. The production of ketone bodies increases significantly, And these molecules do more than simply supply energy. They send signals to the brain and muscles, altering focus, perception, and for some people, even the sensation of hunger. In this phase, autophagy runs more actively. Cells begin breaking down and recycling damaged structures. It is a biological cleansing process deeply embedded in human evolutionary heritage, a mechanism developed not for comfort, but for survival. OMAD is therefore not a simple dietary style. It is a strong metabolic stimulus. The body operates in a state that many modern humans barely recognize anymore. For some, this state feels clear and focused. For others, it brings stress, restlessness, or exhaustion. And it is precisely here that it becomes clear that fasting is not merely a matter of willpower, but a matter of biological resilience. The decisive difference between 16-8 and OMAD does not lie in hunger. It lies in the depth of the biological state in which the body operates. 16 hours of fasting bring metabolism to the threshold. 23 hours keep it there and push it further in. With 16.8 fasting, the body remains flexible. It switches modes without becoming permanently locked into a fasting state. Insulin drops, fat is used, but the stress on the system remains low. This rhythm is sustainable for many people in the long term because it enables change without endangering balance. OMAD, on the other hand, forces the body to go deeper. Ketosis is more pronounced, autophagy more active, but at the same time, hormonal strain increases. Cortisol can rise, especially in people whose daily lives are already shaped by stress. The body works efficiently, but not relaxed. Biologically speaking, OMAD is not an upgrade of 16.8. It is a different mode, a tool with greater impact and greater risk. More is not automatically better. It is more intense. And that is exactly why success is not determined by the method, but by the person applying it. Both forms of fasting can have profound effects on metabolism. Both 16-8 and OMAD can improve insulin sensitivity, activate fat metabolism, and help the body handle energy more efficiently. For many people, constant hunger decreases as hormonal signals are recalibrated. With 16.8 fasting, sustainability and adaptation are the primary focus. The body receives regular phases of recovery without remaining in a prolonged energy deficit. Inflammatory markers may decrease, and metabolism remains stable. This approach is particularly suitable for people who want to integrate fasting into their daily lives long term. OMAD, by contrast, can trigger stronger effects. The pronounced ketosis, the extended phase of low insulin, and the more intense autophagy act like a biological reset. But this reset is not suitable for every body. In some people, it leads to sleep disturbances, increased irritability, or hormonal imbalance, especially individuals with eating disorders, chronic illnesses during pregnancy, or those taking certain medications should avoid extreme forms of fasting or practice them only under medical supervision. Fasting is not a competition. It is a tool, and every tool demands respect. 16 hours of fasting change metabolism. 23 hours of fasting change the state in which the body operates. That is the decisive difference. 16.8 opens the door to metabolic flexibility. OMAD walks through it, but not without consequences. Depth does not automatically mean progress, and more discipline does not necessarily mean more health. The human body is remarkably adaptable, but it constantly communicates through energy, through stress, through exhaustion. Fasting works best not when it is endured, but when it is understood. So the real question is not how long someone can fast, but in what state should the body operate in order to remain healthy in the long term. Those who use fasting should not work against their bodies, but with them. And those who want to go deeper should know when it is time to surface again. What experiences have been made? Does 16.8 work better, or OMAD, or perhaps both at different times? Write it in the comments. And if this video helped you better understand your own body, then subscribe to the channel for more scientifically explained insights into human energy, metabolism, and health.